In this podcast, we chat about the defeat to QPR, give our thoughts on the new signing of Matthew Hoppe from Real Mallorca, look ahead to the Carabao Cup game against Barnsley with Joe from Red All Over, and answer your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is your Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod.
Wants support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Jonny and Dana. We are the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro Matchday chatter in a podcast. And Boro suffered the first defeat of the season at the Key and Prince Foundation Stadium against QPR. Boro were 3-0 down after 38 minutes, but rallied with goals from Matt Crooks and Marcus Forss, but it wasn't enough to salvage a draw. Dana, the return of the curse as well, which is why I'm called Dana's Curse today, if you're watching us on YouTube. But how are you feeling in 3 words?
I'm going to say unconcerned in parts, and make sure to get the ellipsis in there after unconcerned. I mean, I admittedly went to sleep after I woke up, and if anybody has had that little second sleep, they'll know how deadly it is. I woke up just before the lineup was announced. I felt like I'd entered a different dimension. And then when I was watching the Boro game, I thought I definitely am in a different dimension, because this is not the Middlesbrough team that I'm used to seeing. Because we were just so sloppy, weren't we, in that first half? And yeah, we gave ourselves a massive, massive mountain to climb, and there was a few concerns from that, but then positives to take out of the second half. So we will get into that.
Yeah, we will. I'm going to say a loss in London for mine. Just a shame to lose, of course, the first game of the season. Yeah, a loss. No, so just loss in London is going to be my 3. Loss in London is going to be my 3.
Quick maths.
Yeah, quick maths. Yeah, I'd say that. I think it's a shame to lose in such a way, but I think QPR were good yesterday, and we'll come into why we thought QPR were good, and also why Boro would just shot themselves in the foot in that first half, and it really stopped us playing. But let's break it down, because it was probably a somewhat eventful game, really, because we were 3-0 down for 38 minutes. Crooks pulled one back from a Giles corner, which we are now, set piece specialists, confirmed. And then we scored again from Marcus Forss, and Darrell Lenihan got a red card. So nothing much really happened. But Dana, a boring game, 0-0 draw all day long. But how would you assess the performance against QPR?
Well, they already sort of touched on it there. The first half was terrible. I think our build-up play was so poor. It was so slow and sluggish. We couldn't really break QPR down so much. And we were so off the pace in terms of those easy parts of football, passing the ball to an opponent, to a teammate. We were passing the ball to an opponent. Our passing was incredibly poor. We were losing the ball in key moments, and suddenly we were going from a potential attack to defending a counter-attack. And yeah, catalogue of individual errors, from losing the ball, the first goal, for example, Jones, fairly simple square pass to Howson, not played properly, and then we're defending a counter. Bad marking, bad decision making, poor goalkeeping, and the second half, to our credit, was better. You can see it's reflected in the stats as well. More shots, more possession, better pass success rate, more aerials won. We definitely upped the ante in the second half, because we simply had to. It was really, really poor in the first half. And if it wasn't for that Crooks goal at the end, then it would have been up there with the worst halves. In fact, it probably still was up there with one of the worst halves that we've seen under Chris Wilder. I think Akpom made the difference, because he was able to pick balls out the sky and spin beyond defenders using his pace. And that's what Jimmy Dunn in particular doesn't want to see. So, yeah, better in the second half, but we gave ourselves far too big of a mountain to climb in the first, unfortunately.
Yeah, we did. And, when you're 3-0 down after 38 minutes, I think it's very, very difficult to come back from it. It's not 2006 anymore. We don't have the firepower of Macaroni, Viduka, Hasselbank, Yakubu, Down and Whitman balls in. I mean, Giles has got a wicked left foot as well. But yeah, it was just it was you were never going to come back from that game, but we nearly did. Of course, obviously one of the goals was disallowed, and I thought we played really well in that second half. But it was a bit of a concern yesterday around that midfield, then, because from a few weeks ago we were praising how good it was, but we just seem to be lacking numbers there and a lack of competition. Is this midfield now a concern, even though it was probably one of our biggest strengths?
Yeah, Wilder was praising it as well. It has become one of our problem positions in a way, because the first two games I've seen a very hectic second half against West Brom in which we lost control of the football match. And I think when you lose control of the football match, it's all about the midfield. And in the game against QPR yesterday, I don't think we had control on it at any point, really. It was hectic. And yeah, last season it was such a good part of the pitch for us because we were effective, getting forward, getting back. The energy in that department was really good. The depth was good, the quality was good, and now we don't have the depth, and the quality is waning a little bit. I think Matt Crooks has picked up from where he left off at the end of last season. I don't think in terms of his all-round game he's showing what he's capable of. Of course, he got a goal and a goal and an assist yesterday, which is what people will look at, but his all-round game, it wasn't particularly great. And I don't think he was all that great against West Brom either, unfortunately. And it is early days, so this can change. But it's just an
Yeah,
observation.
yeah. Look, there's improvement there. Look, we need to go into the market. We need to bring in bodies to try and help this midfield and create the competition again, and which gets the best out of the players. But I was really intrigued yesterday around QPR because they really stopped Boro from playing in that first half, and they were forcing us long. And I feel like I can break this down for us because I really like QPR's shape yesterday. They were set up in a 4-2-3-1. Amos, Chair, and Willock were rotating that number 10 role. Defensively, Amos would drop a little bit deeper and create more of like a 3 to stop any midfield overloads, which you can potentially have in a 3-5-2 when you're playing as Boro. I think the beauty of a 4-2-3-1 or like that 4-4-1-1 or whatever you want to call it, it does give you flexibility, especially in midfield and like those forward areas. But most important, it allows you to maintain your shape, especially in those defensive areas. And that's what they did. They were really, really good at occupying space, especially within the half spaces. And on the first graphic that I've pulled up is that it's a lovely little line across the back five. It's a lovely little curved line, very compact. They're not as the only width that they've got is probably the half space at a push, which is going to make things really difficult. Then also you're compacting the midfield as well, which is going to force Boro along to try and get the ball to Giles or Jones. And the only time they ever got that Giles and Jones was because they would have to come up into that building phase where you're in your Boro's third or in that mid third of the pitch where you've got more of the ball, and they have to pretty much like come up to try and create the space to try and progress Boro forward. And Boro really struggled with that, and I think QPR's like aggressive press and occupying that half space was really, really good. The only way you can really get past that at times was those quicker diags and getting a bit of tempo in that midfield. And that's what we did in the second half. And that's how we were able to create more chances because we were much quicker getting that diags to try and stop them from compacting in the shape that they're in. And that stops the rotation as well. But on that first goal, Boro do have the ball. Dykes just passing it all wide to Jones. Jones gets it. And this part of Boro's play is good. Like, this is really, really good play because we know there's going to be a combination play here. You've got Crooks is about to come in, which he does. We've got Dykesdale there as well. And Johnny Howson is just out the picture. But Jones will look to pass to him in a second. But what Crooks is really good at here, he sees that Jones is going to put onto his left foot. So he knows the combination is going to go. And he goes out to that right-hand side into the wide space. And then Middlesbrough have got a 2v1. On the flank, which will create a big, big chance. Jones decides to give a suicide ball to Johnny Howson. And if you want to put Johnny Howson in hospital, that is the exact type of ball you want to put him in with. And with the compact nature of QPR's shape, they were able to aggressively press the ball fairly quickly, and given it such a bad ball and the fizz just isn't there, they win it back really, really well. And now that Crooks has already made the move, Jones has made the move, Howson hasn't got the ball, it creates a massive space in the middle of the pitch. And Chris Willock can just run and run and run into this space. But if you want to be really critical in this moment, and where he just get the ball and he's just about to pass the halfway line. There's a massive gap between the midfield and the defence because Lenihan and Boro and probably Dijksteel, who's just in the bottom of the picture as well, are starting to go back towards the goal. If you want to, you can probably have a line towards, or not go as far back as the centre circle, and that's a really, really high line, and that's a lot of space behind you. I mean, there's pros and cons to both of it, but Boro choose to go back again, not a bad thing, because you're trying to defend your goal at this point because you're being exposed. Jones tries to take him down, fails miserably. Then Dijksteel again. At this point, Dijksteel just do anything, just chop him down, take the yellow card, take one for the team, and then this goal probably won't happen. But what Chris Wilk does really well is he shields the ball off well. He's got his back to Dijksteel. He's got the ball away from him. The foot's he's placing the ball on the outside of his foot, so he's going to play it just outside of him into a more of a central position, which again, really good from him. And then he gets his shot away, which is an absolute rocket. No chance for Stefan. But there's been 3 phases there where Boro have probably done problems. I've got problems there because obviously the Jones pass, which is frustrating. Then you've got that big space in the middle. And then also you've got the tackles where you just need to take him out, really. But they don't, and he scores a really, really good goal. And I think you can have no complaints from a Zach Stefan point of view, which we will come on to in a second. But that first goal for me, I think it's really, really good. And I think obviously the beauty of a 4-4-1-1, like I mentioned, that flexibility, that rotation you can have, that shape nature, the aggressive press is really good. 3-5-2, which Boro are really good at. You can create overloads in that half space and out wide as well. And that combination play is really good. You see it a lot from Boro this year, and you can get switches across the play as well. But I think the downside to so many formations, it doesn't really matter sometimes what formation you play, because there's pros and cons to everything. Like 4-4-2, you could have a load of space between defence, midfield, and strikers, or you can have 4-3-3 is good for balance. But when's your fullback going to engage? How and know when to do that? How much space can you give? 4-4-1-1, I think that compact nature really good for rotation. But then also, if you're compact, then you give away a lot of space out wide.
That analysis course is coming in clutch there, isn't it? Johnny's spitting it all out.
Just spin it all out, But that's what I mean. I think it's right. Like there's going to have so many formations, but it doesn't really matter at that point. There's going to be pros and cons to any of it. But what were you going to say, Dia?
I was going to say, Wilder's spoken about wanting more devilment from players, and I think Dijksteel's far too nice there, isn't he? Like you said, he does need to take one for the team there and just take Willock out, because we've seen how good Chris Willock is. He is such a good player at this level. I was surprised that he was playing because obviously he got an injury, and a pretty bad one at the end of last season, but obviously recovery obviously went well, unfortunately for us. Knock your camera out there, Johnny.
Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, I think we need more nastiness in our team. We just need Adam Clayton there to just come and rugby tackle Chris Willock, and just take him out. That tactical foul, that's what was needed there from either Jones or Dijksteel, and unfortunately it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's a shame. And, I mentioned Zach Stefan there as well, having absolutely no chance on the first goal. And as it's courtesy that you're drinking the malt out of the Malt Curse mug there, because the Malt Curse was back. The Malt Curse of Middlesbrough Football Club. He said that he'd be able to catch you from the stadium on last week's podcast, Dana. And he couldn't catch a cold after that second goal yesterday. Well, he did. He was good. He caught quite a few afterwards, but he's got to do better there, hasn't he?
To be fair, yeah, he does need to do better. I have noticed he elects more to punch than to catch, in fairness, which is, it's obviously up to him.
Not a bad thing, yeah.
Not a bad thing. But in that instance yesterday, it turned out to be a bad thing, because it's obviously there is contact. I think it's Jimmy Dunn puts his arm on Stefan, but it's not enough for me for a 6'3", fairly beefy goalkeeper to be moved as much as Zach Stefan is, and to subsequently claim a foul. The argument that I've seen towards it being a foul is that we've seen them given, but that to me is a cop-out answer. It's either a foul or it isn't, and for me it's just not a foul. It's nowhere near enough. There's a big discussion about goalkeepers being protected. If that had been given, I'd be wiping sweat off my brow, because thinking, we got away with one there, because it's just not a foul for me. It's just nowhere near enough for to claim one. And I mean, it's kind of irrelevant anyway in the end, because we just weren't good enough. Wilder was speaking and channeling Neil Warnock after the game, talking about the referees, the officials, but we were not good enough. Even if the referee and the officials were on our side, that first half was as bad as you're going to see under Chris Wilder. So, yeah, it was poor. He needed to be stronger with that. And I don't want to overpraise him or over-criticise him, Zach Steffen, but that was a red flag planted firmly in the soil at Loftus Road. So, something to be mindful of.
Yeah, but there's mistakes all over the pitch, Dana, and there definitely was yesterday. And the third goal is very much relevant to that, because another individual mistake from Boro, and a set play, 38 minutes, you're 3-0 down. Let's break this goal down as well, because it could be so much better.
Yeah, it's so poor from Boro, and it's straight off the training ground, really, isn't it? I mean, you've got Stefan Johansson and Elias Chair.
Textbook.
Yeah, standing over the ball. It's obvious it's going to be clipped in. I know we've obviously got Matt Crooks in the wall there, just in case Chair is going to try to put it into that top corner. But just before the ball is actually played in by Stefan Johansson, you can see exactly who's marking who in the box and just on the edge of it. Everybody's picking somebody up, and Dijksteel's got Dickey, Baller's got Dykes, and this is really important because just again, we move it on a little bit just before, or just as Johansson moves to then play the ball into the box. Dykes makes a very good but quite simple run off the back of literally everybody. He peels off into a more central space in between our defenders. I think it's Giles in the middle of the box, and then Jones makes a run, and then Dijksteel all of a sudden, as I said, he's marking Dickey. He's then got to think about who's coming on the inside of him, which is Lyndon Dykes. Baller, meanwhile, isn't actually picking up this movement, so Dijksteel makes that. Dykes makes that move. You can see why I'm getting mixed up there. Dykes makes that move centrally, and then Dijksteel has then two men to contend to. So he has that last minute decision to switch to Dykes, because he's obviously made that move central, peeled off everybody, and Bowler unfortunately has not tracked that run, and he gets stuck behind that scrum, if you like, in the box. And it's really unfortunate the way that it plays out, because it's good movement, but it's fairly simple. I still feel like Dijksteel maybe has to do a little bit better. You can see just as he kind of realises that Dykes is there, you can see by his body position, it's kind of that last minute panic of, right, and I need to completely change my kind of where my body's actually going, because he was on Dickey, now he's on Dykes. So he's got a 2v1 in QPR's favour and definitely against Anthony Dijksteel. Meanwhile, ball is still just there, and he just doesn't pick up that run from Dykes, which is really disappointing. You've then got Zach Steffen, who seems to lag a little bit and dive after the ball is being headed behind him, but it's just really, really poor. Simple run, not tracked by Baller. I still think Dijksteel could be better, get his body in front, maybe be a little bit stronger, but it's just really, really poor and really avoidable as well. I don't think Chris Wilder and Cole would be happy with that one whatsoever.
Yeah, frustrating. It's frustrating, I think, from a Boro perspective. It's another individual mistake, but again, I don't think that QPR were in danger of causing Boro a lot of problems yesterday. I think shape-wise and in the way that they played, I thought it was relatively a steady performance from them. It was just, I think, Middlesbrough's mistakes gave QPR the opportunity, and at that level, you're going to get punished in those moments. And being obviously 3-0 down after 38 minutes, not fun, but we did get back into the game. Set piece specialists, of course, now with the goal, and McNair and Akpom coming on as well, which again for Dijksteel a lot more. I thought Akpom was superb yesterday. And there was a lot of positives, probably is, and still is positives to take from yesterday as well. But Boro really seemed to find the groove and rhythm, and we showed that with Boro's goal, because Marcus Forss scored his first goal from, in his first league start, and that's a big bonus. But it was trademarked from Forss, and it was trademarked from Boro, and it was a good goal from Boro, wasn't it, Dana?
It was, yeah. McNair picks it up on the right hand side, and this is what I absolutely love about our play. You can see that somebody drops deep. They take the ball in, they trap it, and they move. And it's about that physicality, but mobility as well, crucially. And we do have a question about Uche later, which we'll obviously get on to a big part of what's missing from Uche, which is the latter part of what I've just said. But Akpom drops deep, and he takes the ball in from McNair. And then what happens is Force makes a really good run and he curves his run centrally. And what it does is it takes, I think it's Dickey, towards him and opens up space for Matt Crooks. And it's really good play there in the half space. Matt Crooks, as we see him down that right-hand side, really good ball into the box. And what I like the most about it is Force's run is with the intent not just to be in an area just for the sake of it, but he knows that cross is going to be put on a plate for him. And I mean, 6-yard box Marcus Force goal. It is standard Marcus Force from what we've heard. And hopefully we can see a lot more of that. The kind of gambling and being in the area with the intent that the ball is going to be put into the box, into that area. And it's just really unfortunate after that, because it did feel like we were in the ascendancy, but QPR did something very clever in terms of game management. I think it might have been Johansson that goes down injured, and it just took the sting out of the game. And as soon as I realised that there was a stoppage in play, I was like, yeah, I think that's completely halted our momentum there, unfortunately. And yeah, we couldn't get back into the game. We fizzled out after that, unfortunately, but it was good game management from QPR. Boro just, didn't have that spark in the end to get us back into the game and get us that point.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, Max did a massive yawn there as well, and just ran for that set.
He wasn't happy with my rambling and waffling there, was he?
No, it was. I don't think it was that. I think he was just disappointed in Boro's performance yesterday, but I think it was I think it was a lot of. I think even though it was a defeat, and that first 40 minutes was really poor. I think there's definitely a lot of positives to take from that, and then finally, Lenihan, red cards, no complaints. I don't have any, to be honest. Do you?
No, it was a nasty challenge, because the radio described it as a collision initially. And then on the replay, it was a really bad challenge. He leaves one in on Macaulay Bonne. He's really poor. There's a lot going on in that moment, because Tommy Smith gets clattered and taken out, and someone else does as well. And then the next move is like Lenihan studs in on I think Macaulay Bonne's thigh. Yeah, it's a red card, and obviously it feeds into the discussion of who's going to make up our back three, because I don't think Wilder was best pleased with Dyce's performance. As much as I love him, it was probably one of his worst performances in a Boro shirt, unfortunately. He was incredibly poor. Probably one of the worst players on the pitch, to be honest, before he got taken off. So, yeah, interesting for the next league game to see, what that defence will be.
Absolutely. And just before we move into the present place, I always feel like Tommy Smith, he just reminds me of Martin Craney. So it's
he's wearing 14 as well.
He is the regen.
There was a club, right, of these types of players. They all wear 14. Lee Peltier was wearing 14 last season, wasn't he? Craney, Lee Peltier, Tommy Smith. They're all cut from the same cloth.
Just a bunch of regens for number 14. But before we go into the present place this week, we just want to give us a quick shout out to the Motor Neuron Disease Association. We're looking to raise £3,000 this season for a wonderful, wonderful charity. And I mean, we could always put that in the present place each week, but we've just got a small clip just to give you a bit of insight as to why we're raising money for the Motor Neuron Disease Association this season.
We want to make a difference on the podcast this year. That's why we've teamed up with the Motor Neuron Disease Association, which is a charity incredibly close to myself and my family. In 2015, my mother was diagnosed with MND, and I saw firsthand the deterioration of somebody that I loved. If you don't already know, MND is fatal and has no cure. It leaves people unable to talk, walk, swallow, and eventually breathe. But thanks to the help of the Motor Neuron Disease Association, my mother was able to communicate with us when she could no longer speak. If you'd like to help the Motor Neuron Disease Association continue their fantastic support for those with motor neuron disease, please give what you can to www.justgiving.com/the Boro Breakdown MND.
The praise and place. The praise and place is the place. We give praise to players, fans, chips and gravy, curry, whatever, and more. So, Dana, who gets your nomination for the week in the praise and place?
I've got two players. Ryan Giles, because some of the balls again that he was putting in, I was on tees after the game and I said that he must have been made in a lab because that left foot is something else. And then Akpom, because Akpom came in from literally nowhere. He was out in the cold. He was very good last week against QPR, West Brom, and he changed the game against QPR. Yeah, you were doing it last week. I'm doing it this week. But yeah, it changed the game yesterday. I think him being on, as I said, he was able to pick those balls out of the sky. He was able to turn. It was physicality and mobility in intertwined, and yeah, he looked really sharp as well. Considering that his conditioning isn't top notch because obviously he wasn't in pre-season with Middlesbrough until the week before the season started. I think Akpom deserves an awful lot of credit. And on Giles, Scout hasn't updated yet, but I'd love to see his expected assists from this game week because I'm sure he'll be pretty up there. Some of the balls that he was putting into the box, the chances that he was creating. I think he created 3 chances and 1 big chance. Very, very good from him. And I'm so excited. I'm just so excited to see more of Ryan Giles.
I'm excited to see like how Boro just do in general this year. I think I'm still just as excited about this season than I was yesterday. Like even though it was defeat yesterday, it wasn't a good moment for us. We do look really good in parts, and for me that praise and place nomination will I'll probably fall the same as you and go Giles and Akpom. I thought Akpom was superb yesterday. The way he brought others into play, the way that it was good, movement was good. He doesn't look like a player that has had a bit of a preseason out, and we're seeing the quality that we thought we were going to get when we brought him in. And he is a good footballer. And we've said this on the podcast numerous times. It just felt like the system that he was in under Neil Warnock just didn't suit him, didn't suit the team. And I remember having we did a podcast before about low crosses and trying to get the most out of these players. And we're finally starting to do that, and we're starting to reap the benefits of that because of we're trying to play at these striker strengths. And for me, if Akpom's not here at the end of the transfer window, then so be it. He's played well in these games and deserves the praise that he's getting. And then also Ryan Giles, excellent again, really, really positive. It's going to break my heart when he goes back to Wolves unless we sign him on a permanent. But then also Marcus Forss was good as well. So it was relatively a good performance from a couple of individuals from the game, and there was positives, but we've also made mistakes and we've been punished for them, and hence why we lost the game. But let's move on to podcast questions, Dana, because each week we give you the chance to ask us a question on the podcast, and you can do that via Twitter at the Boro_breakdown, our email at theborough_breakdown@hotmail.com, or Telegram, and join our Telegram chat with over 260 Boro fans in a Telegram chat, chatting everything. Probably actually not everything Boro, probably nothing about Boro. Maybe once in a while we chat about Boro, but most of the time it's absolute carnage in there. But first question, then I'm going to come to you first. And
you can't come to Tom, can you?
Well, I could go up myself first. I could take the first question. So trying to do me on my intro, but Dominic Campbell's asked us, how much did Wilder get wrong in the first half, and will he take any responsibility for his actions?
I don't think he can legislate for individual mistakes like how we saw for each of the 3 goals that we conceded in that first half. What he can take responsibility for is obviously not bringing Akpom into part of the picture sooner, because he does fit the style of play. He is a striker that benefits from having a strike partner alongside him. He does have the ability to poach. I think he can be a build-up striker as well. We saw that yesterday with his physicality and then the kind of turn of pace that he span beyond somebody at one point yesterday. And it was unfortunate that his path was blocked after that, but he absolutely did the centre half. And I think he does fit the system, as I've said. And I think a few people in our Telegram chat were saying the same before the season started, and we're looking forward to seeing more of what he can do. But yeah, the mistakes in the first half, I think that played a huge part into how the game panned out really in that first 45. Because I mean, Wilder can't pass on behalf of Isaiah Jones. Wilder can't claim the ball on behalf of Zach Steffen. Wilder can't track Dykes' run that Bowler should have done. It was just 3 really bad individual mistakes. And there's probably something to be said about the midfield, but as I said, that spacing behind, or as you said, the spacing behind, that it doesn't happen usually because Boro are usually so good in possession. So I think the players individually need to be better in possession and on the ball.
Okay, then. Next question is from Ian Smith. I'll get your thoughts on as well, Dana, because we're big advocates of this one. But do we need to just accept the fact that we're not likely to find a left centre back that's better than any of our right-footed ones that we've already got? I get the preference for balance, but in McNair and Fry, we've got two top quality centre backs who are more than capable of playing that role. For me, I think if we can get one, perfect. If not, then we have got the replacements there. But it comes down to probably having the squad depth of it. I think, we've got I think there's Fry, there's Lenihan, obviously, who's out now. You've got McNair, we've got Dykesteel and Ball really, and probably need, and Tommy Smith, the Martin Craneys of this world, who's probably more of a right wing back than anything. Yeah. I think we have got quality centre back, in McNair and Fry. We don't write Dale Fry off. Good, very, very good centre back. I think Lenihan deserved his place in the team this week. Otherwise, I think you'd definitely be seeing Fry start there, and Fry will make that position his own. But I think for me, if you can get a left centre back, absolutely you go for it. But again, we've got some, I think Ian's right there. We do have quality centre backs, but I think it's just a case of I don't think we need to accept it yet. What about you? Do you think we need to accept it yet, or I don't know? It's a tough one.
I think we have found a left-footed centre-half that I don't think he's better than what we've already got, but he certainly improves that left-hand side, and we've bid for him already in Jacob Greaves. Now, whether or not Hull want to sell is time will tell. I think there will be a point in the transfer window where things do start to shift in gear. It has been, generally speaking, quite slow for a lot of clubs, and I just feel like Boro will go back in for Greaves, and surely there'll be another option. There will be another option there if we don't actually land Greaves. But he's a fantastic player that fits the system, comfortable on the ball, bringing it out, playing as one of those wide centre halves, decent in the air as well. So I think we have found one. It's just acquiring him that's obviously proving quite difficult. But I'm hoping that Hull decide that the offer's too good to turn down. I wouldn't expect Jacob Greaves to push for the move because I think he is a Hull lad. His dad played for Hull as well, so there's connections there. It's obviously a club close to his heart, but at the end of the day, that there is a project at Hull, but I think the strength in the project is far greater at Middlesbrough, although the first two games haven't really showed that. So yeah, I think if we go in for Greaves, I'll be really happy. Obviously we have, but if we go in for him further and put in another bid and test their resolve a little bit.
Yeah. Okay then. Next question is from Jimmy Lees, and he says, does everyone agree that Duncan Watmore is a perfect impact sub? Also, everyone is talking about defenders and strikers. We are lacking 3 new midfielders, surely. Duncan Watmore side of things, I agree. Impact sub for me, I think he's definitely best when he comes out of that. And there's nothing worse for a centre back than Duncan Watmore running that year with 20 minutes to go when you're fatigued. And then the other side of it of needing 3 new midfielders, we spoke about it. That we definitely need depth there. Hopefully we can bring someone in or a couple of players in this week to try and cement that a little bit further and try to improve things for more competition for places. Next question, D. It's from Paul Smith, and he says, what do you think the problem at Middlesbrough is with transfers? Every manager since Karanka that I can remember has had targets and wanted to do the business early, yet we miss out on so many. We sell players easily, i.e. Tav. Look, it took about 6 to 7 days that we know to get it over the line. So what is the problem there? What is the problem? Why can't Boro sign players?
I'd love to diagnose an issue here, but I honestly don't have a clue. I feel like this is one for an athletic long read, to be honest. But I don't think we're the only club, to be fair. It is frustrating as a fan, but I do think the market is different. It's kind of getting over the kind of COVID market, whilst also obviously the season has been brought forward, started in July, for Christ's sake, July. So I think it's probably just different this year. But then again, as Paul said, it has been a problem for us over the years. So I don't know, to be honest. I can't point the finger at anybody because I know everybody loves to point the finger at Neil Bowser, but I just don't know. We're obviously outsiders. We don't know the inside scoop. I don't know.
It's also not Neil Bowser anymore either. It's Kieran Scott that's managing all those deals. So I mean, also,
I'm sure when Bowser will have
he
the
will.
final
He'll
grin, shall we say?
Yeah, the final grin. But also on that as well, I think with Boro now and like with signings in general, we've got a new head of football in. We're playing a new system, like a manager who's not even 12 months into a job yet, new style, and new players coming to the football club, and it does take time for transfers to come in because you're waiting on different clubs to complete transfers. So all of this will take a lot of time, and I've said on this podcast numerous times, I think Boro's new way of being a much more sustainable New Middlesbrough could take 2 or 3 years to really bear its fruits, and I cry for patience. But I mean, everyone wants us to go up straight away, and I don't blame us. So
There's also another point about the fact that we have sold Tav for 10 million and Spence for 20 million. Now, I'm not expecting Borough to have exactly 30 million to spend, but clubs will know that we've sold key assets for big amounts of money, and therefore I think they'll up their price. Wilder's spoken quite a few times now about being quoted, I think, 20 million for a Championship striker that's never played in the Premier League. I mean, that's probably Victor Gyökeres there. So I think clubs are going to up their demand because they know that Middlesbrough have the cash, or could potentially have the cash, to potentially overspend there. So maybe that's playing a part in it as well.
It's going to go down the wire, isn't it? Absolutely down the wire. The next question is from Ryan. He says, with Coburn out for 6 to 8 weeks and a clear struggle in the transfer market, is it time that Wilder puts his pride aside and gives Uche a number, especially when we're losing and putting Crooks up top? I don't think Uche should have a number. I just don't think it.
Neither.
Look, I don't think he suits Wilder's football, and to be honest, it's as much as I liked Uche, there's a character, and only under Chris, I think it's Chris Warnock, Neil Warnock.
It was Chris Palaka last week.
I'm terrible for names at the minute, but under Warnock, you could see it. He could bring players in, he caused problems, and he was a sticking point because you want to get balls out wide. With Uche, I just don't think he has the movement, like you were saying earlier. I just don't think he has the movement in the box to get what we want to get out of him. But yeah, I don't know.
He doesn't have the energy either.
Yeah, 50 minutes he was knocking money.
Yeah, exactly. And even when he went to Cardiff, he started maybe 2 games. I'm gonna have to research that. But off the top of my head, he came off the bench more times than he started for them, and that's not a coincidence. That's obviously for a reason. And I just don't think that in terms of the mobility and in terms of the engine and the energy that he fits. And I mean, it's kind of that Patrick Roberts syndrome, isn't it? That as soon as things aren't necessarily going well, it's always the player that isn't playing that is like the hero and the person that we should go to, the answer to all of our questions. Uche is not the answer to all of our questions. Wilder has said himself that he doesn't fit the system. He said that at the Q&A about, 3 weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago. He just doesn't fit the system. And he said that it's nothing against him. He's a fantastic guy, he's Uche, and Boro will not stand in his way. If there's an offer in for him, he'll say only good things about Uche. But unfortunately, he just doesn't fit the system. I understand what people are saying about he's a focal point and he can bring others into play. But we need more than that. It's not just being a target man, it's being an all-rounder. And unfortunately, Uche is not that.
Next question, it's from Mike. He says, do we have a problem with a lack of leaders in the squad? If so, how do we address it? I think there is a little bit of a lack of leadership that we've got, but we've sold a leader in Tav. Howson's of course there. McNair's a leader. Stefan again, US International, will probably be a leader in that dressing room. I think there is probably a Lenihan Smith. Yeah, like there's been improvements there, but I think it's just going to be a bit of a. It said that we're 6 or 7 players short. we're going to probably bring those players in. But it's not like, I don't think we're too short of it. To be honest, I don't think we should throw the toys out the pram at all. It's so early in the season, and we've got so much of our work to do still. Address it by signing players. If not, that's absolutely fine. We've got enough in there to make a good, strong group in the changing room. But then last question is from Paul. Dana, he says, has Chuba done enough for the first 2 games to warrant a chance to prove himself long term in the squad moving forward? Has Chuba done it, Dana?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think Chris Wilder said that he was brilliant yesterday, and he absolutely was. He was the one that changed the game more than McNair did. I do think McNair had an impact on the game because obviously he was the one that drove that pass into Chuba for the second goal that we scored. But it was Akpom really that was making things happen up front and making it stick, and also keeping the play going as well, recycling possession, helping that ball progress up the field. So I think he has, but I still don't think he'll be here when Boro get all their options in. Obviously, that depends on if Boro do get their options in. If they don't, then I think he will still be here. But it's good. It's a win-win situation for Middlesbrough. And you kind of alluded to it last week that he's putting himself in the shop window so that if that does happen, Boro do need to offload him because they've brought in options, then clubs will look at his performances, probably last season as well, obviously. They won't be so short-sighted as to just look at this season, but they'll look at this season as well so far and say, you know what, he's got something to offer. And then if he stays, Boro have got a good option there. So, yeah, I'm all on board the Chuba Akpom redemption arc. I am a big fan of it.
He's only putting value on his price tag as well, so
Exactly,
which would benefit Boro. So it's just all a win-win. But there is a striker that is coming into the club, and it's Matthew Hoppe. Boro have agreed to deal with Real Mallorca for about £2.5 million. The US international is still waiting on a work permit to complete the deal, and it'll bolster Chris Wilder's strike force. And we're going to do a video on Matthew Hoppe once it's being confirmed. The lowdown, if you haven't seen our lowdown videos already on our YouTube channel and they're on our podcast providers as well, do give them a watch or a listen because we just go into real in depth of these players and what they'll bring into it. But then I just want to have your initial thoughts because I appreciate we're going to be bringing out a video in the next day or two about him. But 2.5 million is the reported fee. 22-year-old, I believe, 22, 23-year-old, 21-year-old. See, didn't even know his age. That's why the lowdown videos are so good because I normally get that right. But what's your thoughts on the move, and also can you see him being a first team starter?
For now, I think, yeah, I can see him being in the first team picture, but I'm quite happy with it, to be honest. I do think he's an upgrade on Watmore from what I've heard and what I've read. He will chase down lost causes. He will be that player that harasses defenders, as I said last week. And I do think he's got potential there as well. But not only potential, I think he's got the attributes to deliver now. So, yeah, I'm excited about this one. I think it's a good move, decent value as well. His value can increase. He's obviously got that carrot dangling in front of him with Qatar. There's a kind of question marks over who starts for the US men's national team. So we've got 2 players there. You know, you're talking about the goalkeeper situation. Matt Turner, Zach Steffen, who plays up front. It could be decided at Middlesbrough Football Club who actually gets on their, what do they call it, roster? Is that what they call it? Roster. For Qatar.
Yeah, the United States of Middlesbrough. United States of Middlesbrough. Should call us now. We'll start on stripes and all kits.
What did Matt Crooks say? Let's play soccer, didn't he? To Zach Steffen. Hope there's a sequel to that.
I hope so too. I mean, Leeds also have a number of US players as well, and the US coach and Jesse Marsh, and the US takeover in English football. Absolutely love it. But yeah, I think it's a good deal for Boro. 21-year-old, a lot of potential, good fee. I think Boro fans will always clamour for the where's a 20-goal a season striker for 10 pence and hope for the best. You never know, you might see it enforced this year if we create the chances we're creating in the box. But yeah, I think I'm happy with it. And initial thoughts, 21-year-old, we can add value to him as he gets older. I think it's reported a 4-year deal as well. I think so. I think it's a good move. It shows that sustainability that we're trying to do as a football club and trying to bring more value to these footballers and really improve us on the pitch as well. And I think he does that as well. But we've got a lowdown video coming out in the next day or two, and we'll come over and give you all the insights as well from the United States men's national team thoughts page as well. So all videos ahead very soon. But make sure you subscribe to our channels to find that. Sounds a little push there to do so. But let's look ahead to Boro's game on Wednesday now, where we play Barnsley in the first round of the Carabao Cup, the Riverside. But to get a Barnsley perspective, I'm going to leave you in the warm, soothing sounds of Joe from the Red All Over in a lovely garden, by the way. It's a lovely video. Who will give you insights on the Tykes following their relegation from the Championship.
Hey to all the Boro fans, thanks to Boro Breakdown for having us on. I know you thought you got rid of us last season after Barnsley got relegated, but no, we found a way to sneak onto your video. League Cup game, Boro vs Barnsley, looking forward to this one. Great that we get to play you guys this season. In terms of Barnsley, definitely going through a transition period at the minute. Last season was awful, really, really poor season for us, so we're just starting to see some changes. Michael Duff, new manager's come in, and I think he was the best man for the job. He's starting to really lay his mark down, but there's still quite a lot of confidence issues among some of the players from last season. I think they're still trying to shake off what was a really poor season. But we started to see signs that that's actually, going away now. Beating Cheltenham 1-0 this weekend, and it was a much improved Barnsley performance after a poor performance against Plymouth on the opening day of the season. Starmen, it's hard to say. We've lost quite a lot of our players who have been sold in the summer and brought in quite a few new faces. So I'd probably say Luke Thomas scored the goal against Cheltenham, and it was a great goal, but it was dangerous all game. Man of the match by a mile, to be fair. So if he keeps playing like that, he probably will be one of our star men this season. Still thinking James Norwood's going to do the business for us. He's just come in as well, but still not fully fit, so we've not seen the best of him yet, but we're only 2 games into the season, so I reckon he'll be a threat. Probably going to be some changes, I imagine, for a League Cup game, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this one. I think it'll finish 1-1.
So happy that Joe is a lot happier in this video than he was in the last video we did with Joe. And I mean, to be fair, so they were absolutely rubbish, and then they went and beat us 3-2. So yeah, he thinks 1-1 draw, extra time, penners. Oh, no, it's just penners, isn't it, in the Carabao Cup? But
I have no idea.
That's how irrelevant this game is. But Dana, how are you feeling about the game? I'm assuming you're too buzzing about it, but what's your prediction as well?
I don't know. I'm a very fickle fan when it comes to the early rounds of the Cup, because I don't really feel anything towards it, and I'd love to know if the listeners have the same kind of thoughts. I mean, I'll still be there and obviously support Boro and things like that, but I can never really get myself up for these early Cup games. And then I'm bang up for it when we get into the bloody quarterfinals. But yeah, I think this is a good test for Middlesbrough. It's a good test to maybe bring in the likes of Boyd Muntz, who every time I go to say his name, I go to say Boyd Munch for some reason. But then
Boyd Monster Munch.
Yes. Just edit his face onto some of those. But then maybe Sonny Finch as well. Trying to think who else is kind of in reserve. Liam Roberts can maybe be our cup keeper. I'm interested to see how Boro will line up, because I think there's an awful lot to learn and improve, and that could be a good game to kind of just set a marker out initially and kind of experiment a little bit, or to just potentially even keep the same team bar. Well, Lenham won't be suspended for it, will he? So I don't know, maybe just shake up the squad, keep it the same. Bring other players back into fitness. I'm intrigued. I'm not excited, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game as well. I think any type of these games are always good for fringe players to try and make a mark on that on the squad. Hopefully, we can bring a body in. It's going to probably be Matthew Hoppe anyway. Before the game. And see if we can give him a bit of a run out on game time, which is again a bonus. It does go extra time, by the way. It's 30 minutes and then pens this time this season. But previously it was just penalties, which I was going to be a bit confused. But I think we'll go through. I do think we'll win by 2-0. And Joe's going to be furious, and hopefully we can get a vengeance of that, because last time we played Barnsley, that was a nightmare. Both personally and going to the game as well. I mean, the unlucky saxophone as well of me going.
I hope I don't get searched by a freaking sniffer dog this time.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I mean, at Barnsley as well, that was we all stood there like, on what on earth happened to Dana? But just getting full body search. Hey, dear me. I had a big saxophone in my hand, and what on earth's going on? But predictions, Dana, you could do a goals. Who's going to score?
I'm going to go 2-0. I think Akpom will score. I said he'll score last week for this game and he never, so he's going to score this time. And, who else? I think Crooks. So Crooks and Akpom.
Crooks and Akpom. And who's going to be your curse moment of the week?
Probably that. I'll probably get Crooks will get sent off and then Akpom will get injured, something like that.
Small curse, the official curse of Middlesbrough Football Club. But that's it, Dana. Thank you very much for joining me as always. And thank you very much to the listeners and the viewers as well for watching, subscribing and helping us grow a little bit more as well. And we really do appreciate it. But if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel. We've got a load of content coming out over the next few weeks, especially a video about Matthew Hoppe on the lowdown over the next couple of days. But for right now, this has been the Boro Breakdown podcast. And that was all your Boro Matchday chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.